After a grueling 9-hour drive through a snowstorm to surprise my wife on her birthday, I arrived with a cake, only to overhear something that shattered everything. She was telling her sister, "God, I hope he crashes. I could use the insurance," her sister replied. Or at least a few months of silence. They both laughed. I left the cake on the counter. The next morning I was gone. 3 weeks later, Juliet regretted everything she'd said, but by then, it was too late. I'm 33, and my wife Juliet is 31. We've been married for 7 years, the typical high school sweethearts. We broke up briefly for college, but reconnected at a mutual friend's wedding, and everything seemed perfect after that, or so I thought. Recently, things had been off. Juliet had become distant, and her behavior changed when she started spending more time with her sister Sienna and a new group of friends who seemed to have expensive habits, but no visible income. I noticed her comments about our house being too small and when I'd level up in my career, but I brushed it off. Our life was fine, comfortable, even a 3-bedroom home, 2 decent cars, and the occasional vacation. Last week, it was Juliet's birthday. February birthdays in the Midwest are never ideal. Cold and often snowy with plans canceled. I wanted to do something special, so I made a plan. Juliet mentioned she wanted to visit Sienna that weekend for spa day, and I pretended I couldn't get away from work. The truth? I'd already arranged to take Friday off, planning to surprise her at Sienna's with her favorite cake from the bakery, and then take her to a fancy dinner I'd booked months in advance. Weather reports weren't promising. There was a storm coming in, but I was determined. I left early Friday morning, hoping for a smooth 6-hour drive. Instead, I ended up battling through Snowstorm for 9 hours. 3 accidents slowed traffic, and I had to stop twice just to stay awake, but I kept thinking about Juliet's smile when I'd walk through that door. It would all be worth it. I arrived in Sienna's neighborhood at 4 p.m., only to find the streets unplowed, forcing me to park a block away. As I trudged through the snow with the cake, I could hear them inside. The door was unlocked. I was about to call out when I heard my name. Juliet's voice, clear but mocking. "From Luca, nothing." I froze. This wasn't the usual playful teasing. There was real contempt in her voice. Then Sienna said, "At least he's not here ruining your birthday week." I almost stepped in then, but I didn't. I just stood there, cake box in hand, as they continued. Juliet laughed. "God, can you imagine? He'd insist on coming to dinner and tell the same 3 stories. Then he'd give that sad puppy look when I want to go out tomorrow without him." The word stung, but I stayed quiet, listening to my wife ridicule me. Then I heard it, Juliet laughing again. "God, I hope he crashes. I could use the insurance." Sienna chimed in. Or at least a few months of silence. They both laughed. Something inside me snapped. I didn't think. I just walked into the kitchen, set the cake on the counter, and turned around. Their faces went white as they saw me. Juliet called my name, but I didn't stop. I just walked back through the snow, back to my car. I sat in the car for 20 minutes before I could even start the engine. My phone exploded with texts and calls, but I didn't check any of them. I drove to a motel, checked in, and turned off my phone. The next morning, 63 unread texts, 29 missed calls. I didn't read a single one. Instead, I texted my friend Calvin. "Something happened with Juliet. Need a place to crash for a few days." Theo, being the MVP he is, replied. "Doors unlocked, beers in the fridge." I drove back home, packed my things while Juliet was still at Sienna's, grabbed important documents from the fireproof box, and went to Theo's. That was 3 days ago. I still haven't spoken to Juliet, though she's been trying. Juliet has called from multiple numbers, left me tearful and angry voicemails, and even showed up at my work yesterday. I wasn't there. I called in sick. Today, I went to the bank, moved half our joint savings into a new account under just my name, froze our joint credit cards, and changed all my passwords. I told my boss I needed to work remotely for a week because of a family emergency. It's all very methodical, which feels strange given that inside, I feel like I'm free-falling. But I can't stop replaying those words. I hope he crashes. I could use the insurance. Who says that about someone they're supposed to love? Who laughs about their spouse being silenced for months? Even worse, I'm realizing this might not be the first time she said something like this. It's just the first time I heard it. Our friends have started reaching out, but Juliet's telling everyone it was a misunderstanding, that I'm overreacting, classic gaslighting. One mutual friend even texted, "Whatever happened, I'm sure you guys can work through it." Not once did they ask for my side. I haven't told anyone what I heard. Not even Theo. Though he hasn't pushed, he just keeps the fridge stocked and gives me space. Last night, I read some of Juliet's texts. They followed a predictable pattern. Confusion, defensiveness, anger, manipulation, threats, and self-pity. I'm worried about you. Please let me know you're okay. If you don't call me back, I'll report you missing. I can't believe you'd do this to me on my birthday weekend. Not one apology, not one acknowledgement of how messed up what she said was. After reading those, I blocked her number. I'm not ready to talk to her. Maybe I never will be. Today, I met with a financial advisor named Desmond, whom a coworker recommended. We spent 2 hours going over our finances and uncovered some interesting things. Juliet's been spending $700 to $800 a month on online shopping for the past year, and she took out a store credit card I didn't know about with a $3,000 balance. Desmond helped me come up with a plan to untangle our finances as smoothly as possible. It's all legal, no shady business, but Juliet's about to get a reality check on her spending habits. The joint account I've left untouched has enough to cover this month's mortgage and utilities, and after that, we'll see. I'm not trying to leave her destitute. I just need her to understand there are consequences. The wild part is that I still find myself wondering if I'm overreacting. Maybe it really was just a joke. But then I remember her tone, the casualness with which she wished me dead, the laughter afterward, and I know I'm not. Theo says I should talk to her for closure. Maybe he's right, but right now, I'm still processing. I'm still trying to figure out who this person I married really is. Tomorrow marks 4 days of silence for me. Juliet's sister Sienna tried to call today, but I didn't answer. Then our neighbor Lydia texted to say Juliet was crying on our front step because I changed the garage door code. Part of me feels bad. Most of me doesn't. The thing that keeps me up at night isn't even the insurance comment. It's the laughter, the easy way they both found humor in the thought of me suffering. Who does that? And how long has she felt this way? I've also been thinking about the life insurance policy we took out 3 years ago. It's not huge, $1, $5 million, but it's enough to make someone hope for an accident, I guess. I'm calling the insurance company tomorrow to change the beneficiary. This is getting long, but typing it out helps. Theo's got a buddy who's a divorce lawyer. I'm meeting him for coffee tomorrow. Not sure if that's where this is heading, but I need to know my options. For anyone wondering what I'll do next, I don't know yet. Part of me wants to disappear completely, change my number, move to a different state, start over, but that feels like running away. Another part wants confrontation, wants to see her face when I repeat those words back to her, wants her to feel even a fraction of the hurt I'm feeling. But mostly, I just want the hollow feeling in my chest to go away. I want to stop seeing her face when I close my eyes. I want to stop hearing those words and that laughter replay in my head. For now, I'm taking it one day at a time, keeping my head down, making plans, and letting her wonder where I am, what I know, and what I'm going to do. If there's interest, I'll update as things develop. Regardless, thanks for letting me vent. Sometimes the internet is the only place where strangers will just listen without trying to fix everything. Still standing. Still breathing. Luca. Here's an update. For those joining in, I drove 9 hours through a snowstorm to surprise my wife Juliet at her sister Sienna's house for her birthday. I overheard Juliet telling Sienna she hoped I'd crash for the insurance money. I left the cake on the counter and walked out. I've been staying at my friend Calvin's place for 3 days, ignoring her calls and texts while sorting out finances. Many of you asked for an update, so here it is. It's been a week since my last post, and 10 days since I heard those words that keep echoing in my head like a cursed TikTok sound. They say anger fades. That's what all the self-help podcasts Calvin's been playing in the kitchen claim anyway. The rage subsides, and you're left with a clear mind to make better decisions. I'm still waiting for that part. Last Wednesday, day 4 silence, I woke up with a plan. Not a good plan, not a healthy plan, but a plan that felt right in that moment. I waited until 9:30 a.m., knowing Juliet would be at work. Then I went home. Our home, with 3 empty suitcases and Calvin's pickup truck. The house looked the same as when I left it, coffee mug still on the counter, mail piled up by the door, but it felt different. Foreign, like walking into a movie set of my life. Rather than the actual thing, I started in the bedroom. Packed all my clothes, except the ones Juliet had picked out for me. Left those hanging in the closet like abandoned cocoons. Took my grandmother's watch from the dresser, my journals from the bookshelf, the external hard drive with all her photos. Petty maybe, but I paid for that damn thing. In the office, I disconnected my gaming setup, left the desk. We bought that together, but I took the chair. I bought it when she complained about the squeaky wheels on the old one, found her marriage certificate in the filing cabinet, and took that too. Not sure why, it just felt important. Throughout the house, I systematically removed myself. My books, my records, my tools from the garage. The weird metal sculpture I bought at that art fair, she hated, for hours of methodically erasing my presence. Why didn't take? Anything we'd purchased together, the couch we picked out after 3 weekends of shopping, the kitchen table where we'd eaten thousands of meals, the bed where we'd slept, fought, made up, and made love. I left all of our framed photos exactly where they were. Something about seeing my face smiling back at her from every wall, every surface felt right, a reminder of what she'd thrown away. Before I left, I did 3 things. First, I turned the thermostat down to 62 degrees. Juliet always complained if it was below 70. Second, I took the light bulb out of the refrigerator, a small inconvenience that would take days to notice but would irritate her every time she opened it at night. Third, I changed the Wi-Fi password to "I hope he crashes 2023" and left the router unplugged. Small things, petty things, things that would make her feel the absence of me in 100 tiny ways before she even processed the bigger absence. As I locked the door behind me, our neighbor Lydia was getting her mail. She looked at Calvin's truck filled with my stuff, then at me, eyebrows raised. I just shrugged and said I was taking some things to donate. She didn't believe me. Her eyes said as much, but she nodded and went inside. Midwest politeness. Don't ask uncomfortable questions. Mind your business. Usually that annoys me, but that day I was grateful. Back at Calvin's, I stacked everything in his garage except for 2 suitcases of clothes and necessities that came inside. He helped me unload without asking questions, just handed me a beer when we were done, and said, "Sometimes life kicks you in the teeth." Thursday was financial day. I met with Desmond again. He'd gathered all our account information and laid it out in a spreadsheet that made my stomach turn. It turns out Juliet had been spending way more than I realized. Not just the store credit card I mentioned before, but cash withdrawals from our joint checking account. $300 here, $500 there, over $12,000 in the past year that she couldn't account for with receipts or purchases I could see. Desmond helped me draft a letter formally requesting financial separation. Not divorce papers, not yet, but a clear statement that I would no longer be responsible for any new debt she incurred. I had it delivered by courier to her workplace. Petty? Maybe. Effective? Definitely. I also canceled our shared streaming accounts and subscription services, changed the passwords on our cloud storage where we kept important documents, redirected all my mail to a P.O. box, small, systematic cuts to our intertwined life. Friday morning, I finally checked my social media. 17 Facebook messages, 34 Instagram DMs, even my dormant Twitter had notifications. People checking if I was okay, people asking what happened with Juliet, people taking sides without knowing the full story. I posted exactly one thing, a photo of a half-eaten birthday cake on the kitchen counter. No caption, no context, just the cake. Within an hour, my phone blew up, friends texting to ask what it meant. Juliet called 6 times in 20 minutes. Her best friend Jill sent a message asking if I was okay. Because Juliet was really worried, I answered none of them. That afternoon, I met with Ramon from work to explain I needed some personal time. He was surprisingly understanding. He just asked how much time I needed and if I could still handle the Wilson project remotely. I said yes to the project, too weak for the time being. He didn't pry, just clapped me on the shoulder and said, "Sometimes space is the best way to get clarity." First decent advice I'd gotten since this whole thing started. Saturday brought the first real confrontation. I was at the grocery store, staring at frozen pizzas and trying to remember which brand Calvin preferred. When someone called my name, I turned around to find Sienna standing there, shopping basket in hand. Face pale, like she'd seen a ghost, she started with the usual. "Juliet's worried, sick. Everyone's concerned. Won't you please just talk to her?" When I didn't respond, her tone shifted. She said I was being childish, that it was just a joke between sisters, that I was blowing things out of proportion. I finally spoke, asked her point blank if she thought wishing death on your spouse for insurance money was normal sister joke material. I asked if she wanted her boyfriend to hear her say something similar. I asked if she realized that joke was the culmination of months of Juliet's growing contempt. She didn't have answers, just stammered something about misunderstandings and context. I put the pizza back, left my half-filled card in the aisle, and walked out. Petty? Yes. Satisfying? Also yes. Sunday was quiet. Calvin had some friends over to watch the game. They all knew something was up, but nobody asked. They just handed me beers and made room on the couch. For 3 hours, I almost felt normal. Then Monday hit, and with it, reality. My temporary leave from work began. The house I'd shared with Juliet for 5 years was sitting half empty across town, and my phone showed 15 missed calls from her overnight. I finally listened to one voicemail. Her voice sounded different, scratchy, raw. She said she hadn't been sleeping, said the house felt wrong without me. She said she noticed more and more of my things missing and it was scaring her. Asked if I was ever coming back or if I was ghosting our entire marriage. Something about her terminology, treating our relationship like some Tinder match you can just disappear from, hardened something in me. I texted Calvin that I was going for a drive and ended up parked outside her house, my house, Juliet's house. For almost an hour, I sat there. Her car wasn't there. The porch light was on, even though it was daytime, like she'd forgotten to turn it off. The recycling bin at the curb was overflowing with wine bottles. I didn't go in, just sat there wondering how many mortgage payments I had left, wondering if I should sell it and split the proceeds or try to buy her out, wondering how we'd gone from forever to forensic accounting in 10 days. Tuesday brought another financial surprise, a notification from our credit card company about unusual activity. Juliet had gone on a shopping spree. Over $2,000 at department stores and boutiques, retail therapy, or deliberate financial sabotage. Either way, I called and reported the card stolen. A new one sent to my P.O. box, another bridge burned. That night, I finally posted something more substantial online, not about Juliet specifically, but a simple status. Sometimes the hardest thing and the right thing are the same, vague enough to mean anything, specific enough for those in the know. Juliet would see it. Her friends would see it. The narrative was shifting from Luca is having a meltdown to something serious happened. Wednesday marked 2 weeks since I'd heard those words in Sienna's kitchen. 2 weeks of silence from my end. 2 weeks of increasingly desperate attempts to contact me from Juliet's end. I met with a lawyer Calvin recommended. Nice guy named Desmond. Yes, same name as my financial advisor, which got confusing fast. He laid out my options. Divorce would be straightforward since we don't have kids, but the house and finances would still be complicated. He suggested a formal separation first, to give both of us time to untangle things properly. I agreed, and he drafted the paperwork on the spot, said he could have it served as early as Friday. The ball was rolling now, picking up speed with each day of silence. Thursday was when things escalated. I was working remotely from Calvin's dining table when the doorbell rang. Calvin answered, then came back looking uncomfortable. Juliet was outside, he said, crying, demanding to see me. I sat there frozen, coffee halfway to my lips, as Calvin awkwardly asked if he should send her away or let her in. Neither option felt right. I wasn't ready to see her, wasn't ready to hear whatever excuses she'd prepared. But sending her away felt like giving her ammunition, proof I was being unreasonable. So I nodded, and Calvin let her in. She looked terrible, hair unwashed, eyes red-rimmed, wearing what looked like the same sweater from days ago. She stood in the doorway, staring at me like she couldn't quite believe I was real. I didn't stand, didn't offer her a seat, just waited. She spoke first, asking if I was really having her served with separation papers. Apparently, Desmond's assistant had called to verify our address, and she'd pressed until they revealed what the call was about. So much for the element of surprise. I said yes, I was. She asked why I wouldn't talk to her, wouldn't let her explain. Her voice kept catching, like she had to force the words out. I told her there was nothing to explain. I'd heard what I heard. She said it wasn't what I thought, that she'd been stressed about work and bills, and her sister always brought out the worst in her, that she didn't mean it literally. It was just dark humor after a few glasses of wine. I asked her if she remembered what she'd said exactly. She hesitated, then claimed she'd said, I wish he'd just crash on the couch for a while, and that I'd misheard. That's when I pulled out my phone and played the audio. Yes, I had a recording, not because I planned it. I've been using a voice memo app to record gift ideas on the drive, trying to think of what else to get her for her birthday besides the cake. Never stopped the recording when I arrived. Pure accident. Or fate. Or whatever you want to call it. Her exact words. In her exact voice. God, I hope he crashes. I could use the insurance. Sienna's response. Or at least a few months of silence. The laughter afterward. The color drained from Juliet's face as she heard herself. She tried to grab my phone, but I moved it away. She started crying harder, saying it was taken out of context. She didn't mean it. She'd never hurt me. I asked her one question. Would you have told me about this conversation if I hadn't heard it myself? Her silence was answer enough. Calvin had made himself scarce when she arrived. But now he came back into the room, awkwardly suggesting maybe they should continue this conversation another time when emotions weren't so high. Juliet ignored him, focused entirely on me. She started listing all the things she'd realized over the past 2 weeks, how much she depended on me, how the house felt empty without me, how she couldn't sleep in our bed alone, how she'd never meant to hurt me and would spend the rest of her life making it up to me if I just come home. It was the performance of a lifetime, tears, trembling hands, voice breaking at all the right moments. 2 weeks ago, I might have been moved, might have believed her, but something had changed in me. I'd spent 14 days thinking about not just what she'd said, but why she'd said it, the contempt that must have been building, the casual cruelty. The person who could laugh at the thought of me dead was not the person I thought I'd married. So I told her the truth. I didn't know if I could ever trust her again. The separation papers weren't about punishing her. They were about protecting myself while I figured out if there was anything left to save. She didn't take it well. Started saying I was throwing away 7 years over one stupid comment. That everyone says things they don't mean when they're venting. That I was being cruel by disappearing and ignoring her. I just sat there, letting her words wash over me without penetrating. When she finally ran out of steam, I told her the separation papers would be delivered tomorrow, and she should read them carefully before deciding next steps. She left sobbing, mascara streaked down her face. Calvin came back in with 2 beers and said that was the most uncomfortable thing he'd witnessed since his parents' divorce. Dark humor, but I appreciated the attempt. That night, I couldn't sleep, kept replaying her face when she heard the recording, the shock, the panic. But not. I noticed genuine remorse, just the fear of consequences. Friday morning, the papers were delivered as promised. By Friday afternoon, Juliet's sister was posting vague social media statuses about men who overreact and destroying marriages over misunderstandings. Funny how families close ranks even when they know who's in the wrong. But something unexpected happened too. Juliet's best friend Jill messaged, just a simple text saying she'd heard the whole story now, including what Juliet had actually said. And she was sorry I was going through this. Said she'd known Juliet since college and had seen her make similarly cutting remarks about others. Said she tried to talk to Juliet about it before, but got shut down. It was the first message from anyone in Juliet's circle that acknowledged the legitimacy of my pain rather than trying to minimize it. I didn't respond, but it stuck with me. Maybe Juliet's comment wasn't a momentary lapse, but a glimpse of her true character. Maybe I'd been missing or ignoring red flags for years. The weekend passed quietly. Calvin had a date, so I had the house to myself, ordered pizza, watched a sci-fi series Juliet had always refused to watch with me, and tried not to think about the fact that in another life, another timeline, I'd be at home with my wife celebrating our monthly pizza and movie night tradition. Sunday night, Juliet texted, "Just 2 words, I'm sorry. First, genuine apology in 17 days. No excuses attached. No demands to talk, just those 2 words." I didn't respond, but I thought about it longer than I should have. Monday morning, day 18 of this new reality, I woke up to find Juliet sitting in her car outside Calvin's house, just sitting there, watching the door. Calvin spotted her first and pointed her out through the kitchen window. I called her, asked what she was doing. She said she just needed to see me to know I was really okay. Said she wouldn't approach the house or make a scene, just needed visual confirmation. It was both concerning and oddly touching. I told her to go home, that this wasn't helping either of us. She asked if I'd read her message. I said yes. She asked if I believed she was sorry. I said I didn't know. Then she asked the question I'd been dreading. "Are you filing for divorce?" I told her the truth. I hadn't decided yet. She stayed in her car for another hour before finally driving away. Calvin suggested changing the locks on my house, just in case. I agreed, and we spent the afternoon installing new deadbolts, another small severing of our connected lives. Today marks 3 weeks since that night at Sienna's. 3 weeks of silence, mostly separation and sorting through the wreckage of what I thought was a solid marriage. I'm not sleeping great. I miss stupid things. The way Juliet always bought the good coffee, even though it was more expensive, how she'd sing badly in the shower every morning. Her ridiculous collection of fuzzy socks that always ended up on my side of the bed. But I don't miss the growing contempt I now realize have been building for months. Don't miss walking on eggshells around her moods. Don't miss the subtle put-downs that I'd brushed off as just her sense of humor. The separation papers have been signed and filed. The lawyer says we're officially in a legal separation period. 6 months where we're still technically married but living apart with finances formally separated. At the end of those 6 months, we either reconcile or proceed with divorce. 3 weeks ago, I wouldn't have hesitated to say reconciliation was impossible. Now, I'm less certain, not because I've forgiven her, but because untangling a 7-year marriage is complicated, houses and bank accounts and families and friends, all intertwined in ways I'm only now beginning to understand. As I write this, my phone lights up with a notification. Another message from Juliet. Can we meet? Neutral location. Just to talk, please. I don't know what I'm going to say. Part of me wants to hear her out. Part of me thinks it's just prolonging the inevitable. Most of me is just tired of the whole situation. But I suspect I'll agree to meet her, if only to say to her face all the things I've been typing to strangers on the internet. We'll update if anything significant changes. And thanks for all the advice on the last post, even the weird suggestions involving glitter and her shampoo bottle. Some of you need therapy, but I appreciate the solidarity. Still standing, still breathing, Luca. Final update. It's been exactly 25 days since I left that cake on the counter. 25 days of silence, separation, and more adulting than I ever wanted to do. This will probably be my last update because, well, there's only so many ways to dissect a dead marriage before even the internet gets bored. First, thank for all the comments and DMs. Yes, even the weird one. No, I did not take the advice about putting fish in our car vents. Y'all are savages. So the coffee shop meeting, I got there 15 minutes early because anxiety makes me punctual. Downtown groundwork. Coffee at 2 p.m. on a Thursday meant it was busy enough for background noise, but not so crowded we'd be overheard. I picked a corner table, ordered a black coffee I didn't want, and waited. Juliet arrived exactly on time, not 5 minutes late like she usually would be. Hair done, light makeup, wearing the blue sweater I'd given her last Christmas. All strategic choices, I'm sure. The first thing she said when she sat down wasn't hello. It was that she'd lost 7 pounds since I left. Just dropped that fact like it was supposed to mean something. Stress weight loss as relationship currency. Classic Juliet move. I didn't acknowledge it, just asked why she wanted to meet. She'd prepared notes. Actual handwritten notes on a yellow legal pad. The sight was so unexpected, I almost laughed. This woman who would rather die than make a grocery list had bullet pointed her way through whatever this conversation was supposed to be. Her first point, she was sorry, genuinely, deeply sorry for what she'd said. It was cruel and thoughtless, and she didn't mean it. She'd been stressed about work, annoyed that I was missing her birthday weekend, or so she thought, and had been drinking wine with Sienna all afternoon. The words just came out. I asked why she'd laughed afterward. She flinched like I'd flicked water in her face, said it was nervous laughter. Said Sienna always brought out her worst side. Said it was a stupid attempt to seem edgy and cool in front of her sister. Second point, she'd been taking our relationship for granted. She'd gotten comfortable in the safety I provided, the stability. She'd stopped appreciating everything I did and started focusing on what I didn't do. Third point, the past 3 weeks have been a wake-up call. She'd realized how much she depended on me. Not just financially, though that was part of it. At least she was honest. But emotionally, said the house was too quiet. Said she'd started talking to herself just to hear a voice. Fourth point, she wanted to try couples therapy. Had already found someone who specialized in rebuilding trust after betrayal. Had booked a preliminary appointment for next week. Wouldn't I please consider it? Through all this, I just sat there, sipping my now cold coffee, watching her face for signs of the woman who'd casually wished me dead. Was this performance or genuine remorse? I still couldn't tell. When she finished her prepared remarks, she put the legal pad down and looked at me directly for the first time, asked what I was thinking. I told her I was thinking about parallel universes, about how in another timeline, I never drove through that snowstorm, never heard what she said, would still be living in blissful ignorance, sleeping next to someone who could laugh at the thought of me dead. She started crying, not the theatrical sobbing from Calvin's living room, quiet tears that she kept wiping away with a napkin like they were an inconvenience. I laid out my terms, not negotiating points, just facts. The separation would continue for the full 6 months as planned. I wouldn't be moving back in during that time. I wasn't saying never to reconciliation, but I wasn't saying yes to couples therapy yet either. I needed time. She nodded through all of it. Like each word was a small blow she was absorbing. When I finished, she just asked if I hated her. Weirdest part, I didn't. Still don't. There's anger, disappointment, hurt, but not hate. I told her that. She seemed genuinely surprised, said she'd been telling herself I must hate her to shut her out so completely, said it was almost worse that I didn't, because it meant I just didn't care enough anymore to feel anything that strong. That stung because it wasn't entirely wrong. The conversation wound down after that. We agreed to communicate through email about practical matters like the house and bills. She continued paying the mortgage. Her name's on it too. I continue paying my share of utilities. We'd reassess at month 3 of the separation. As we got up to leave, she hesitated, then asked if she could hug me. I said no. She nodded like she'd expected it, gathered her things, and walked out. I sat there for another half hour thinking about how surreal it was to have such a business-like conversation with someone you've seen ugly cry. Someone who's held your head when you had food poisoning, someone who knew every stupid, embarrassing story from your childhood. 7 years reduced to bullet points on a legal pad. Life took on its own strange rhythm after that. I extended my remote work arrangement through the end of the month. Calvin's spare room began to feel more permanent as I invested in a decent mattress topper and hung up a few pictures. I established new routines, morning runs, work, hitting the gym 3 times a week, and cooking dinner with Calvin whenever our schedules aligned. The silent strategy I'd been employing seemed to be yielding unexpected results. With minimal contact from me, Juliet appeared to be doing some real reflection. A week after our coffee shop encounter, Juliet's sister Sienna sent me a surprisingly humble message. She admitted that she'd been a bad influence on Juliet for years, encouraging her to be brutally honest and cold, some twisted form of sisterly bonding. She expressed regret for laughing that day and didn't ask for forgiveness, but wanted me to know she recognized her role in all of it. I didn't reply, but I took screenshots, not for leverage, but to remind myself that I wasn't crazy for feeling betrayed. Meanwhile, the financial pressure I was under was harder than I had anticipated. Juliet's friend Jill reached out again, mentioning that Juliet was struggling to maintain her lifestyle on just her income and had to cancel her monthly spa membership. She was looking for a roommate to help with the mortgage, but didn't want to actually move anyone in because she was still holding on to the hope that I'd come back. I recognized the manipulation at play, using a friend to try to guilt me, but I didn't take the bait. I thanked Jill for the update and told her that if Juliet wanted to discuss financial arrangements, she could contact my lawyer. By day 30, there was a noticeable shift in Juliet's approach. Her emails became less emotional and more practical. She started selling off her expensive clothes and bags on resale apps. She even got rid of her second car, the convertible she'd insisted on buying last summer. She mentioned in an email that she was considering taking classes to increase her earning potential. It was like watching someone grow up in fast motion. Strangely, I felt proud of her, even though I remained firm in my decision not to rescue her. Then came day 35, and with it an unexpected twist. I checked the mail in my P.O. box and found a thick envelope from Juliet. Inside was a handwritten letter, 10 pages front and back, and a USB drive. The letter was essentially a timeline of our relationship from her perspective. Every major moment, both good and bad, was recounted. The proposal at the lake, our first big fight over her spending, the miscarriage in year 3 that we'd never properly discussed. She wrote about the gradual shift in how she saw me, from partner to provider to obstacle. It was brutally honest in a way our actual conversations had never been. She admitted to resenting my contentment with our life while she always wanted more. She confessed to comparing our lifestyle to that of her friends, even though she knew they were drowning in debt to keep up appearances. She also admitted to flirting with her coworker Jason last year, though she swore nothing physical had happened. The USB drive contained audio files, recordings of her therapy sessions, made with her therapist's permission, apparently. I only listened to one. I couldn't stomach more. Hearing her dissect our marriage with a stranger was too intimate, too raw. I heard the genuine confusion in her voice when she tried to explain why she'd said what she did about the insurance money. It was too much. I deleted the files and filed the letter away in my document box. I wasn't sure if I'd ever read it again, but throwing it away felt wrong. By day 40, there was another development. I ran into our neighbor Lydia at the hardware store, and she mentioned that Juliet had been hosting some sort of weekly gathering at the house. Though not parties, just meetings, she said there were always 6 or 7 cars parked outside on Wednesday nights. Curiosity got the better of me, so that Wednesday, I parked down the block and watched. 7 women arrived between 6 and 6:30 p.m. All were around Juliet's age. Some I recognized as her friends, other strangers I didn't approach. It would have been weird, but I did text Jill afterward to casually ask what Juliet was up to these days. Jill told me that Juliet had started a women's accountability group, focusing on financial literacy and breaking toxic relationship patterns. It was not at all what I had expected. Around day 45, the social media dynamic shifted. Sienna, who had been conspicuously silent online about her situation, posted a lengthy status in support of her sister. She mentioned helping Juliet recognize destructive patterns in her life and tagged Juliet in the post. Juliet responded with a simple message: "Love you, but this journey is mine to share when I'm ready." This caught the attention of our mutual friends. Suddenly, people who had been giving me space started reaching out, asking what was going on. The rumor mill churned. Someone heard Juliet was in rehab. She wasn't. Another heard I'd cleaned out our accounts and left her destitute. Also untrue. Yet another claimed we'd been having problems for years and that the separation was mutual, which I guess was partially true. I kept quiet and let them wonder. Day 50 marked a significant moment. For the first time since leaving, I went back to the house while Juliet was home. I needed to pick up my winter gear from the garage. Minnesota spring is a lie, and we'd gotten 6 inches of snow overnight. I texted her first to make sure it was okay. She responded immediately, saying she'd be home all day working on a project. Pulling into the driveway felt surreal. The lawn needed mowing. The flower beds were untended. Small signs of my absence. Juliet met me at the door, but didn't hover. She just said, "Take whatever time you need," then retreated to the kitchen, where I could see she was painting something. The house felt different. It smelled different, too. Less like my laundry detergent and more like the essential oil diffuser she'd always wanted to use, which I'd found too strong. Photos had been rearranged, and some furniture had been moved, not drastically, but enough to notice. In the garage, I found my winter stuff neatly boxed and labeled, not thrown together in a rush, but carefully packed. She'd even included things I'd forgotten about. My favorite scarf, the expensive gloves my mom had given me 2 Christmases ago. As I loaded the boxes into my car, Juliet stepped outside with a mug of coffee. She asked if I wanted to see what she was working on inside. No pressure, just an offer. Curiosity got the better of me. I followed her into the kitchen, where she had set up a small art studio. She was painting wooden signs with inspirational quotes, the kind of thing she used to mock people for buying at Target. She actually seemed embarrassed as she explained that it was therapeutic and that she'd sold a few at a local farmer's market. We talked for maybe 15 minutes, just surface-level stuff, the weather, her parents' anniversary, the knocking sound coming from the water heater again, the kind of normal conversation 2 people who used to share everything would have. As I was leaving, she said something that stuck with me. She mentioned she had been reading about grief and realized she was grieving our marriage while also hoping to save it. Those 2 things kept contradicting each other in her head. I nodded and told her I understood because I felt the same way. It was the most honest exchange we had in years. Day 60 brought financial clarity. I met with Desmond, the financial advisor, not the lawyer. The conversation was still a bit confusing, but it revealed that Juliet had stuck to our agreement. No new joint debt, regular payments on her personal credit cards. She'd even paid off a store card I hadn't known about. Desmond suggested it might be time to discuss more permanent financial arrangements, depending on where I stood about reconciliation. I realized I hadn't actively thought about that choice in weeks. I'd been so focused on maintaining boundaries that I'd avoided the bigger question. So I made a list pro-con style, like deciding between 2 cars or job offers. Only this time, it was about whether to try saving a 7-year marriage or walking away for good. The list didn't help. Some things can't be quantified. Day 70 came with another shift. Calvin announced that he was seeing someone seriously enough that they were talking about moving in together. Not immediately, but within a few months. He assured me I could stay as long as I needed, but the subtext was clear. It was time to figure out something more permanent. That weekend, I toured 3 apartments. I signed a 6-month lease on the second one, 1 bedroom, a walkable downtown location, a decent kitchen. I told Juliet via email. Her response was brief. "I understand, but the door here remains open." Moving day came on day 75. Calvin helped, along with 2 other friends. For hours of carrying boxes and furniture up 3 flights of stairs because the elevator was broken. We ordered pizza and beer afterward, a makeshift living room picnic to christen the place since I hadn't bought a dining table yet. That night, alone in my new apartment, I finally opened a folder of photos on my external hard drive, 7 years of memories. Vacations, holidays, Random weekday moments, Juliet laughing at something off camera, Juliet sleeping with her mouth slightly open, Juliet in the early days, looking at me like I hung the moon. I didn't cry, I just sat there feeling the weight of everything we'd built and everything we'd lost. Day 80 brought an email from Juliet asking if we could meet again. She wanted to discuss what would happen after our 6-month separation ended. Still 3 months away, but she wanted to be prepared for either outcome. We met at a different coffee shop this time. More neutral territory. She looked good, healthy. She'd cut her hair to shoulder length, wore minimal makeup, and kept it simple with jeans, a sweater, and boots. The flashy designer purse had been replaced by a canvas tote. The conversation was direct. She asked if I was leaning toward reconciliation or divorce. I told her honestly that I hadn't decided. Then I asked what she wanted. She said she wanted to try again, but only if I could eventually forgive her, really forgive her, not just say the words while still holding on to resentment. She said she'd changed in the past 11 weeks, was still changing, and wanted the chance to show me that person, rather than just tell me about her. I told her I believed she had changed, that I was changing too, but I wasn't sure if our new selves would still be compatible or if we had grown in different directions. She nodded, agreeing. She said that was fair. Then she handed me a sealed envelope. She said it contained her proposed terms for either outcome, reconciliation or divorce. She asked me to read it when I was ready and let her know my thoughts. I opened it 3 days later. Inside was the most mature, reasonable document I could have imagined from someone fighting for their marriage while preparing for its end. For reconciliation, she proposed 6 months of couples therapy before cohabitation, full financial transparency from both sides, regular check-ins about relationship satisfaction, with an annual State of the Union discussion about goals and progress. For divorce, she proposed a fair division of assets based on contributions rather than strictly a 50-50 split. She would buy out my share of the house at market value. No alimony in either direction, a clean break with minimal lawyer involvement, if possible. It was clear-headed, practical, and completely unlike the Juliet who'd wished me dead for insurance money just 3 months earlier. I emailed her that both sets of terms seemed reasonable and asked for time to make my decision. She responded simply, "Take all the time you need." Day 90. Today, 3 months since I heard those words in Sienna's kitchen. 3 months of silence, separation, reflection, and growth. I've been thinking about cakes, the one I left on Sienna's counter, the birthday it was meant to celebrate. And the moment everything changed this afternoon, I went to the same bakery. I bought the same cake, drove to my new apartment, and set it on my new counter. Then I took a photo and texted it to Juliet. The first direct text I'd sent her in 90 days. She called immediately, but I let it go to voicemail. I cut a slice of cake, sat on my secondhand couch, and listened to her message. She didn't beg, didn't make assumptions. She just said she understood the symbolism, said she would accept whatever I decided. She told me she was proud of how I'd handled myself through all of this, with dignity instead of destruction. Said she was sorry again, not expecting forgiveness, but offering the apology anyway. I'm meeting with the lawyer tomorrow, not to file for divorce, not yet, but to discuss the next steps of either path, to understand what reconciliation would really look like after something like this, to know exactly what I'm choosing. Tonight, I'll finish this cake alone, not out of sadness, but because some journeys need to be walked solo. I don't know if Juliet and I have a future together. The wound she inflicted was deep. The trust she shattered won't be easily rebuilt. But I do know that whatever I decide, it will be from a place of strength rather than fear, of clarity rather than confusion. Those words at Sienna's kitchen table revealed something ugly, but maybe they also revealed something necessary. Maybe we needed to break completely to see what we were actually made of, or maybe some things, once broken, should stay that way. Either way, I'm at peace with the process. The man who left that cake on the counter 90 days ago would have set himself on fire to keep Juliet warm. The man writing this now knows his own worth. I'll update one last time after I make my final decision. But for now, I'm signing off. Thanks for coming on this journey with me. Internet strangers, your advice, support, and occasional terrible revenge suggestions have been a strange form of therapy. Still standing, still breathing, stronger than before.